Welcome to our deep dive into 100 Years of Solitude. I have to say, this one is a bit of a beast.
Oh, it
You
is.
guys sent this in, and I'm excited to really get into it.
Yeah,
But it's one that I think a lot of people find daunting,
for sure.
but also incredibly rewarding.
Absolutely.
So it's considered a masterpiece of magical realism, which maybe sounds a little intimidating.
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a barrier to entry.
But it's really just a fancy way of saying that the story blends reality with fantasy.
Right.
So think of it like a dream where the ordinary and the extraordinary coexist, and you're kind of on the right track.
Right, and that's what makes it so captivating.
Exactly.
You never know what to expect next.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating about that approach is it allows the author, Gabriel García Márquez, to explore these, deeper truths
Oh, yeah.
about human nature and society in a way that you just couldn't with straight realism.
Yeah. And he does it through this captivating story of the Buendía family,
Yes.
founders of this mythical town of Macondo.
Yes.
And their story, spanning generations, is like a tapestry woven with love loss, war, even incest.
Oh, it's a wild ride.
It's a lot to unpack.
Yeah,
But that's why we're here today.
that's right.
I've got an expert here with me to help us make sense of it all.
Well, I'll do my best.
So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
How does this mythical town of Macondo come to be?
Well, it all begins, with Jose Arcadio Buendía and Ursula Iguaran,
Okay.
a couple who are also cousins,
Okay.
and they decide to flee their hometown
To escape a curse?
to escape a chilling curse. Exactly.
Oh, pig's tail.
The fear that their union will result in a child born with a pig's tail.
Yeah, that's a heavy curse to carry.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes the decision to run away a little bit more understandable.
Right.
But why found a town in the middle of nowhere?
I think they were driven by this kind of twofold motivation.
Yeah.
On the one hand, the fear of the curse.
Right.
But also this vision of a utopian community.
Mm.
They wanted to create this paradise free from the constraints of the outside world.
Makes you wonder, what is it about the idea of utopia that's so alluring? Is it this desire for a perfect society?
I think there's an element of that.
Or is it more about escaping the imperfections of the world we know?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it too,
Yeah.
Especially for Jose Arcadio and Ursula, who are, fleeing this terrible curse. They're
Right.
looking to create a new world where that curse doesn't have power.
Yeah, where they can kind of start fresh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a question that resonates throughout the novel. You see Macondo starts as this idyllic community,
Yeah.
almost like a Garden of Eden.
Yeah.
But like any paradise, it's
Yeah.
fragile,
Right.
vulnerable to both external forces and the flaws of its own inhabitants.
Right, and that's where I think the gypsies come in.
Yeah.
Right, they introduce Macondo to the wonders and dangers of the outside world.
Exactly. They bring with them new inventions,
Mhm.
knowledge, even alchemy,
Alchemy.
which Jose Arcadio becomes obsessed with.
This is this idea of transforming lead into gold,
Exactly.
which, on the surface might seem like a fantastical pursuit,
Oh, for sure.
but I think it reflects a very human desire, right?
Yeah, it's that desire to kind of, you know, unlock the secrets of the universe.
To transcend limitations.
Yeah, to transcend limitations, exactly.
But as we see with Jose Arcadio, this pursuit can lead to isolation
Oh, yeah,
and madness.
absolutely.
Right.
It consumes him to the point of neglecting his family.
His responsibility.
His responsibility, the town,
Yeah.
everything else falls apart as he becomes fixated on this idea.
So it's a cautionary tale in a way
It is.
about the dangers of unchecked ambition,
Right?
right? And the potential downsides of pursuing knowledge without considering its ethical implications.
Exactly.
So even in this seemingly idyllic setting, the seeds of future turmoil are kind of being sown,
Oh, yeah.
right? Both within the family and within Macondo itself.
Absolutely, and that's a recurring theme throughout the book. Things are rarely as straightforward as they seem.
Okay.
Just as Jose Arcadio seeks to transform matter,
Yeah.
Macondo itself undergoes these transformations
Okay.
as the outside world slowly starts to encroach on its isolation.
So we see government officials arriving,
Yes,
bringing with them the complexities of politics.
that's right.
This clash between liberal and conservative ideologies.
Exactly. And this is where we really start to see the cracks in Macondo's utopian facade.
All right. It's no longer this isolated paradise,
Right.
but a place grappling with
The realities.
the realities of power,
Amazing.
conflict.
The loss of innocence.
Yeah, and it's within this kind of tumultuous backdrop that the first generation of Buendía children come of age.
Okay.
We have Jose Arcadio II,
Okay.
the rebellious first son,
Okay.
driven by passion and prone to violence.
Yeah.
Aureliano, the quiet observer,
Okay.
destined for greatness and solitude.
Interesting.
And Amara,
Okay.
a daughter whose heart will be filled with longing and conflict.
Each one carrying this weight of their family's history.
Exactly.
The looming shadow of that curse, always wondering, is it going to happen to them?
Right, is that prophecy of the pigtailed child going to come true?
It serves as this constant reminder that the past is never really past.
Yeah, it has this way of, influencing the present.
Right.
And that theme of cyclical history,
Yeah.
the idea that we're all bound to repeat the mistakes of our ancestors,
Yeah.
it's woven throughout the novel.
That's a pretty heavy concept.
It is.
But also one that makes you think about your own life.
Yeah.
The patterns that repeat themselves through generations.
Absolutely. And it's something we'll continue to explore
Yeah.
as we delve deeper into the lives of the Buendía family and the fate of Macondo.
So while Macondo may have started as this paradise,
Right.
it's clear that paradise is built on very shaky ground.
Yeah. It's a paradise that's constantly under threat,
Yeah.
both from within and without. And the arrival of these external forces, the intrusion of politics and ideology are just the beginning.
They're the cracks in the foundation that will eventually lead to its downfall.
I'm already sensing a storm brewing.
Oh, yeah.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Oh, it does. But before we dive into the next chapter of Macondo's story and the rise of a legendary figure, Colonel Aureliano Buendía, I want to pause for a moment and just get your take.
Yeah.
What are your initial impressions of Macondo and the Buendía family?
Yeah.
What resonates with you most about their story so far?
I mean, it's interesting. I'm already kind of struck by how quickly things can change.
Yeah.
You have this idea of this utopia, this paradise,
Right.
and then almost immediately it seems like things start to unravel.
Yeah.
And I'm also fascinated by this idea of the curse, right? This pigtailed child.
Yeah.
It's such a strange and disturbing image,
It is.
but it also feels very symbolic.
Right.
Like it represents something deeper about the Buendía family and maybe even about humanity as a whole.
I think you're onto something there.
I don't know. It's definitely a story that makes you think.
It does, and that's just the beginning.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
Me too.
All right, so we've laid the groundwork.
We have.
We've met the Buendías.
Yes.
We've seen the birth of Macondo.
It's fragile beginnings.
Now it's time to dive into the next chapter.
Right.
Buckle up because things are about to get really wild.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be back in a flash to explore the rise of Colonel Aureliano Buendía and the turbulent times that grip Macondo.
Can't wait.
We left off with Macondo kind of facing these growing pains,
Yeah.
this society interacting with the outside world for the first time.
Right. It's a real clash of cultures.
Yeah, and the arrival of government officials, this introduction of political ideologies.
Liberals versus
That
conservatives.
really shook things up.
It did. It's like opening Pandora's box, Once these external forces enter this once isolated world of Macondo, things can never go back to the way they were.
Yeah, and right in the midst of all this turmoil, we have the emergence of Colonel Aureliano Buendía.
Right.
This figure shrouded in mystery and contradiction.
Oh, absolutely.
He goes from this quiet, introspective young man
Right.
to this legendary revolutionary leader.
It's quite a transformation.
Yeah, it's almost hard to reconcile those two images.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about his transformation, though, is how it reflects, the turbulent times that Macondo's going through.
Yeah.
Remember that assassination attempt we talked about?
Right.
The one by the conservative trying to take out Aureliano?
Yeah.
That act of violence really thrusts him into the heart of this conflict, almost against his will.
It makes you think about how external events can really shape a person's destiny.
Oh, yeah.
He didn't choose to be this revolutionary leader,
Right.
but circumstances kind of forced his hand,
Exactly. And from there, he becomes almost this mythical figure.
leading 32 uprisings against the government.
32.
I mean, think about that for a minute.
It's credible.
What drives a man to dedicate his life to this kind of relentless struggle?
Right. It's a question that haunts the novel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, initially you could assume it's this, a strong belief in the liberal cause.
Right. The fight for freedom, justice, equality.
Right. But as the war drags on, we start to see a shift in Aureliano.
Yeah, he becomes disillusioned.
Right.
He's witnessing the brutality and the corruption on both sides of the conflict.
Yeah. He's losing sight of what he's fighting for.
It's that classic paradox of war, isn't it?
Yeah.
The very act of fighting for your ideals can kind of erode those ideals,
Leaving you empty.
leaving you with this sense of emptiness and disillusionment.
Right. And it's not just Aureliano who's changing.
Yeah, Macondo itself is transforming.
Right.
You know, that once idyllic town becomes a battleground.
Scarred by violence?
Yeah, its innocence is lost.
It's like watching this beautiful flower slowly wilt under these harsh conditions.
That's such a great point.
You know, Garcia Marquez does such a beautiful job of portraying this, like, parallel
Okay.
between the individual and the collective experience.
Yeah.
You know, just as Aureliano's spirit is wounded by war, so too is the spirit of Macondo.
Yeah, I noticed that while all this is happening with Aureliano,
Right.
his older brother, Jose Arcadio, the one who ran off earlier,
Yeah.
makes this dramatic return to Macondo.
Oh, yeah.
How does he fit into all of this?
Well, his return is anything but peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, he embodies this very different kind of solitude.
Okay.
One born not from idealism or the pursuit of knowledge like his father,
Right.
but from this, like, lust for power and this disregard for human connection.
Interesting.
You know, he seizes control of Macondo, rules through intimidation and fear.
He's almost like the antithesis of his brother, right?
Yeah.
You know, Aureliano's fighting for a cause, albeit one that becomes increasingly ambiguous.
Right.
But Jose Arcadio is purely motivated by self-interest.
Yeah.
They both end up isolated. They do.
But for very different reasons.
That's a fascinating observation.
Yeah.
I think it speaks to the idea that solitude can manifest in so many different ways. You know, it can stem from external factors like war or from internal choices.
Right. Like the pursuit of power.
Exactly.
Yeah. And let's not forget about Amaranta.
Oh, right.
She's caught in her own web of solitude,
Oh, absolutely.
wrestling with unrequited love and the weight of all these family secrets.
Yeah, her story really adds another layer to this whole theme of solitude.
Yeah, she's a complex character,
She is.
driven by passion and loyalty,
Right.
but also prone to self-sabotage and isolation.
Yeah, her choice to reject love and live this solitary life, you know, it
Yeah.
speaks volumes about the impact of past trauma.
Yeah, it's this reminder that solitude can be a prison of our own making, you know, built from fear,
Fear of guilt.
this inability to break free from the past.
And as we move into the next phase of Macondo's history, this theme of cyclical history, of repeating the mistakes of the past, it becomes even more pronounced.
We're talking about the arrival of the Banana Company.
Yes.
This feels like a major turning point in the story,
Oh, it is.
where Macondo's isolation is truly shattered by these forces of modernization and capitalism.
Right. You know, and it's important to remember that Garcia Marquez was writing from this particular historical context,
Okay.
a time when Latin America was really grappling with the impact of colonialism
Right.
and the exploitation of its resources by these foreign powers.
Banana Company, you know, with its promises of progress and prosperity,
Yeah.
feels like this Trojan horse,
It does.
bringing with it this new form of exploitation,
Exactly. And that exploitation culminates in this pivotal and chilling event.
the Banana Massacre.
Banana Massacre.
Thousands of striking workers brutally killed their bodies, dumped into the sea. The government orchestrates this massive cover-up.
Erasing it from history.
This moment in the book, man, it always sends chills down my spine.
Oh, it's such a powerful scene.
It's this powerful commentary on the brutality of power and the ways in which history can be manipulated.
Silence.
And what's even more disturbing is this collective amnesia that grips Macondo after the massacre.
People just pretend it never happened.
Yeah, they bury the truth under this blanket of silence.
It's this, you know, larger theme of denial and complicity,
Yeah.
you know, when faced with uncomfortable truths.
It's easier to look away.
Yeah, pretend that nothing happened.
It makes you wonder how many atrocities have been swept under the rug throughout history, simply because people were too afraid to speak up or too complicit.
That's a question that goes way beyond the confines of this novel.
Yeah.
It's a question that we need to keep asking ourselves
Yeah.
as we grapple with, you know, the complexities of history and the legacies of injustice.
This period of Macondo's history, marked by both progress and tragedy, really sets the stage for the final act of the novel.
It does.
The Buendía family, once so vibrant and powerful, begins to decline. They're facing a new set of challenges.
And a reckoning with the consequences of their past.
It's like a storm has passed, leaving behind this landscape of destruction and decay.
You know that relentless rain that descends upon Macondo at this point in the story?
Yeah.
It's such a powerful symbol of that decay.
It really is.
You know, it's washing away the illusions of progress,
Yeah.
revealing the true cost of the choices that have been made.
It's almost as if Macondo itself is weeping.
Yeah.
mourning this loss of innocence and the fading glory of this dynasty.
And amidst this somber backdrop,
Yeah.
we see the emergence of this new generation of Buendías,
Right.
each one grappling with their own struggles,
Yeah.
carrying the weight of this family legacy.
This is where we see the prophecy of the pigtailed child come back into focus.
Right. Exactly. The consequences of the family's past sins are finally catching up with them.
But before we dive into those final chapters of Macondo's story and the fate of the Buendía lineage,
Right.
I want to pause here for a second and just ask what stands out to you most about this period of upheaval and change.
Yeah.
What parallels do you see between the events in Macondo and, the world around us? So we've journeyed through Macondo's, those vibrant beginnings, witnessed its tumultuous rise and fall.
Right.
And now we find ourselves kind of in the final act of this epic tale.
The twilight of Macondo.
Yeah, it's a time of decay.
Disillusionment.
And this reckoning with the consequences of the past.
You know what's striking about this final part is how that relentless rain really becomes a character in itself. Like it's mirroring the somber mood, the sense of impending doom that hangs over Macondo.
Yeah, like it's being cleansed, but also erased.
Washed away by this torrential downpour.
Yeah, and against this backdrop, we have the final generation of Buendías.
Right.
Each one grappling with the weight of their family's history.
And that looming prophecy of the pigtailed child.
Yeah, it feels like the walls are closing in.
Right.
The past is catching up.
Right. Yeah, there's this real sense of inevitability about it all.
One of the most poignant stories in this final act is that of Mime.
Right. Amaranta and Aureliano's daughter.
Yeah, she falls in love with Mauricio Babylonia.
This mechanic.
But their love is forbidden.
By her mother, Fernanda.
Fernanda clinging to her aristocratic pride.
Yeah, she refuses to accept Mime's love for someone outside their social circle.
It's a reminder of how societal norms and prejudices can be so divisive.
Yeah, even within a family.
Yeah. It's a classic tale of forbidden love.
It is.
But it also highlights this clash between tradition and modernity.
Right. Fernanda represents that old world with its rigid social structures.
And Mime embodies this yearning for something new.
Right. A love that transcends those boundaries.
And of course, this clash has tragic consequences.
Yeah, Mauricio is shot and paralyzed.
Mime is sent away to a convent.
Silenced and isolated.
It's heartbreaking to see their love destroyed by societal expectations.
Yeah, it raises the question, can true love ever exist in a society so rooted in tradition and hierarchy?
Right. Are we all just prisoners of our social conditioning?
Or can we break free and create our own destinies?
It's a question that goes beyond this novel.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes you think about the constraints we all face in life,
The expectations that are placed upon us.
Right, and the choices we make.
In the face of those expectations.
And while Mime's story is unfolding,
right,
her brothers, Jose Arcadio III and Amaranta Ursula.
Yes.
They face their own challenges.
Jose Arcadio, sent away to become a priest.
Right.
Returns to Macondo, corrupted.
Seeking power.
And ultimately meets a tragic end.
It's like he's caught in this loop.
Yeah.
Repeating the mistakes of his forefathers.
Seeking power, but finding only destruction.
Yeah, he represents that darker side of the Buendía legacy.
The cycle of violence and ambition.
That seems to haunt this family.
But then you have Amaranta Ursula,
right,
who returns from Europe with this, this vibrant spirit.
Yeah, a determination to breathe life back into Macondo.
She's a breath of fresh air amidst all the doom and gloom.
Yeah, she brings a sense of energy and optimism
to this town that's really on the verge of collapse.
But even her efforts are ultimately in vain.
Yeah, it seems like Macondo is too far gone. Its fate is sealed.
And this is where we see the most devastating consequence of the Buendía family's history.
Right.
The curse of the pigtailed child.
It's been hanging over them for generations.
And now, with Amaranta Ursula's love for her nephew Aureliano Babylonia,
it becomes a horrifying reality.
Their passion defying all those warnings
leads to this tragic outcome.
Amaranta Ursula gives birth to a child with a pig's tail.
And dies in childbirth.
Aureliano, left alone with the child,
makes a fatal mistake, leaving the baby unattended.
And the ants, that recurring symbol of decay and oblivion,
they swarm the child,
erasing the last trace of the Buendía bloodline.
It's a gruesome and symbolic end
to this family's lineage.
The final punctuation mark on a century of solitude and sorrow.
Yeah, it's a stark reminder of the dangers of ignoring history.
Yeah.
Repeating the mistakes of the past.
The Buendías, despite their moments of brilliance and passion, ultimately succumb to this cycle of fate that's woven into their very existence.
Aureliano, now the last surviving Buendia,
Right.
grapples with this weight of his family's legacy.
And he finally deciphers that mysterious manuscript.
Left by Melquiades.
The gypsy who brought magic and knowledge to Macondo generations ago.
The manuscript reveals a chilling truth.
It's not just a record of the past,
but a prophecy
that foretells the entire history of Macondo,
including its destruction.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It really underscores those themes of fate.
Cyclical history.
The illusion of free will.
It's almost as if the act of understanding the prophecy triggers the town's destruction.
This self-fulfilling prophecy.
And as Aureliano reads those final lines, this catastrophic hurricane descends upon Macondo,
wiping it off the map,
erasing it from history.
And the novel ends with these haunting words.
Races condemned to 100 years of solitude did not have a second opportunity on Earth.
It's a bleak ending.
But one that invites us to think about,
Yeah, the cyclical nature of history.
the possibility of breaking free from those patterns.
It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it.
It really does.
It prompts you to reflect on your own life.
Your own family history.
The forces that shape our destinies.
So as we conclude our deep dive into 100 years of solitude, we leave you with this final thought.
What does solitude mean to you?
Is it a curse?
A choice.
An inevitable part of the human condition.
And what does it mean to truly connect with others?
In a world that often feels fragmented and isolating.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for sending in this incredible book.
It was a pleasure to dive into it with you.
I hope you enjoyed this exploration
of Macondo.
Of 100 Years of Solitude.
And all its complexities.
It's a book that offers endless layers of meaning.
Yeah, the more you think about it, the more you discover.
We could probably talk about it for another 100 years.
Easily.
But for now, we'll leave you to ponder those questions.
And to continue your own exploration
of this truly remarkable work of literature.
Until next time.
Take care.